Hey there, Jim Johnson here for Accent Help. And I had a question from somebody about the concept of the devoiced tap or flap R. Okay, so to explain a little bit of what this is the IPA symbol for it. It's basically an R. I've drawn it a little long there, a little bit of an R without that upper leg on it. And that is what is commonly called the tap or flap R. So this tapped R is the thing that Americans do a lot of times for a T or a D sound between vowels. Betty bought her, bought some butter. Now this R would actually be the trilled R, but this is the tapped R that you might also think of. The difference between that trilled one and the tapped one is in Spanish, the word for dog versus but, meaning however, B-U-T, of a perro versus a pero. So that's why it's thought of as a tapped R. But a lot of times what happens is Americans, for example, and many other people as well, use this as the equivalent of a T or a D sound. There are other ways that people transcribe it, but I like to use these symbols. Now, when you devoice it, that's a little diacritic, meaning devoiced. So you're taking away the voicing. So instead of Betty, it becomes Betty, Betty. The difference is pretty subtle. So I'm going to kind of slow it down and exaggerate it. Betty, as opposed to Betty, where the voicing keeps going all the way through. Here I'm taking away the voicing in the middle of the word. Betty. One of the ways that I coach people to do this is almost think of it like you're going to throw in a little H. And that actually is a diacritic for aspirated. But let's pretend for a moment I'm just going to do a tiny H after it. Betty, 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 Betty. And this is one of the things that you could work on, whether you're doing, say, elevated generican, that sort of general American, but sort of elevated, what I'm doing there. Sort of, elevated, whereas most Americans would say sort of, elevated. Those would be what I want to call tapped R's, as opposed to this devoiced tapped R. So one of the main ways that I coach people to do it is put an H in there. And let's start really strong. Bet he bought her, bought some butter. So putting in that really heavy H and then slowly toning it down can be a useful way to approach that. I also like to use this when I'm coaching people on RP, for example, especially if we're working on classic RP, that sort of old school, where you're not actually doing a full-on T there, sort of, it's not all the way to sort of, where you get this like popping T there. Instead, it's like a really, really light T. But again, I prefer to think of it as that devoiced or the unvoiced tapped R. So that's an answer to somebody's question. If you've got a question, post it below. And if you want more accent information overall, check out accenthelp.com.